Okay, moving on to the next segment of today's show, I wanted to talk a little bit about the game on Tuesday night between the Buffalo Bills and the Tennessee Titans. And if you looked at this game, it was Tuesday Night Football, and I was really looking forward to it due to the fact that both of these teams were undefeated going in. If you listen to the show, you guys know that I'm still kind of skeptical of the Buffalo Bills, and I think going into this game, I was still a little skeptical of the Tennessee Titans. However, I actually picked Tennessee to win this game just because I don't know. They're better than you expect. And if you watch the Tennessee Titans, and I think this statement came to conclusion 100% on Tuesday night in their game against the Buffalo Bills, Ryan Tannehill is actually a really good quarterback. And I know for a lot of people, it kind of took a lot of time for people to really confirm that. And it took a lot of evidence for people to kind of see that, especially because it makes sense. When you look at Ryan Tannehill's career, he was the quarterback of the Miami Dolphins for about 4 to 5 years. And he would show flashes sometimes. I remember one season, I believe it was 2013, the Miami Dolphins started off 3-0 and he was playing pretty well. If you remember, he was in that 2012 draft class, the same one that produced Andrew Luck and Robert Griffin III and Kirk Cousins. But in Miami, even though he was able to sometimes show flashes, he was never really able to just get the job done on a consistent basis. And when he went to Tennessee, I think a lot of people kind of just put him aside and said, yeah, there's no way this guy is ever going to be anything good. Marcus Mariota was the starting quarterback, and I think when Ryan Tannehill a couple off seasons ago ended up signing with the Tennessee Titans, no one really expected it to turn into anything. But very quietly, you guys realize that since Ryan Tannehill has taken over as the starting quarterback for the Tennessee Titans, which was about midway through last season, the Titans in those games are 13-4. And that is just super impressive. And it's not like they're beating, just teams full of nobodies. The bottom line is that this Tennessee Titan team went into Baltimore and beat the Baltimore Ravens in the playoffs last year. They went into New England and eliminated Tom Brady and the New England Patriots. They forced Tom Brady to play the last game in his career as a New England Patriot. I'm not, really willing to say that they're the ones responsible for ending the dynasty, but they definitely have a lot to do with it. And I think if you're a Tennessee Titan fan, one of the main reasons why that this game on Tuesday night against the Buffalo Bills had to seem so appealing to you, and why, if you're a Tennessee Titan fan, you should be really excited right now, is because that was the first time all season that we really saw you play a game where you won by playing the same style that you were able to use to win to your advantage last year. And that's a really good sign going forward. Tennessee just punched Buffalo in the mouth in this game. They were clearly the better team. They were just running the ball straight down the Buffalo Bills' throats with Derrick Henry. Ryan Tannehill was really happy to have A.J. Brown back, and I think that's another thing. If you're a Titan fan, but if you're just a casual NFL fan, I think you kind of forgot just how big of an impact this kid A.J. Brown was able to have on the Tennessee Titans offense last year. It kind of took him a little bit of time to get used to the playbook and get himself operated in that offense, but I don't think it's just some random coincidence that both Ryan Tannehill and A.J. Brown, towards the middle of last year, when both of them were on the field and both of them were really starting to gain chemistry with each other, I don't think it's a coincidence that both of them hit the peak of their game at the same time, midway through last year. And on Tuesday night, you saw those chemistry come to fruition again for those two guys. And Derrick Henry in this game had 19 carries for 57 yards and 2 touchdowns. You guys know how dynamic of a player he is, and I totally understand that the play didn't count, but how about the stiff arm that Derrick Henry had on Josh Norman? I mean, good God. That was just one of the crazier stiff arms I've ever seen, and I think Josh Norman is still flying because Derrick Henry, he said he was doing curls, so that stiff arm was just really impressive. Ryan Tannehill in this game went 21 of 28 for 195 yards and 3 touchdowns. A.J. Brown was the Titans' leading receiver. He had 7 catches, 82 yards, and 1 touchdown. And if you listen to this show, another opinion that I've consistently said that I still believe in is that right now, if you were to ask me, who do you think is winning the AFC East? The New England Patriots or the Buffalo Bills? My answer would be the New England Patriots. And I know that's not the common opinion. Most people would say that it should be the Buffalo Bills. But when you look at Buffalo and the way that they've played so far this season, there is no doubt about it for me that Josh Allen has improved specifically as a passer. Last year, his completion percentage was like 58%. Excuse me, 54%. That's not good. 54%. That's the bottom 10 quarterbacks in the league in one of the most important stats. This year, that number is really improved. He's in the 70s. And Stephon Diggs is a legitimate receiver. But at the same time, there are some flaws to this Buffalo Bills team that I don't think enough people are talking about. Number one, they're having a lot of trouble running the football. And last year, that was one of the main reasons why they were really good. And as good as Josh Allen has played, I just don't think that it's going to continue to this high of a level. I think his numbers are going to regress to the mean a little bit, especially when Buffalo's schedule continues to get a little more difficult. The Bills still have to play all four teams in the NFC West, and we know how tough a division that is. They have to play the New England Patriots twice, and you kind of saw in their game against Tennessee, that was only Buffalo's second game of the season, I think, against this particularly good team, and they just were not able to perform in that spot at all. But when you look at the way the Buffalo Bills were able to run the ball in this game, Devin Singletary had 11 carries for 25 yards. That's just not going to get the job done. TJ Yeldon had 7 carries for 52 yards. That's all right. And I understand the youngster Zach Moss, the rookie running back from Utah, wasn't able to play in this game. But at the same time, I just don't think Buffalo is going to be able to win games when they're not able to run the ball. And to be honest, I did think they were a great fit for Le'Veon Bell. I do think if Le'Veon would have ended up going to Buffalo, he would have immediately found himself at the top of the running back depth chart right away. And I think when you look at Buffalo, their defense really isn't that good either. When you look at the teams Buffalo has played so far this season, I totally understand they're 4-1, but they beat the Jets week 1 27-17. Fine, good win. They beat the Dolphins 31-28, and Ryan Fitzpatrick was able to go bonkers on them in that game. They beat the Rams 35-32. And if you remember in that game, it was the Buffalo Bills who had a 28-3 lead and barely were able to hold on. If it wasn't for a BS pass interference call, odds are the Los Angeles Rams would have ended up winning that game. And then they beat the Raiders 30-23. Fine, solid road win. And then they go to Tennessee and get absolutely punched in the mouth, losing by a final score of 42-26. When you look at the remaining schedule for Buffalo, they still have Kansas City at home. They go to New York. That should be a win. They then host New England. They host Seattle. Go to Arizona. Host the Chargers, go to San Francisco, host Pittsburgh, go to Denver. The games do start getting a little bit more difficult for these Buffalo Bills. And I think ultimately it is going to come down to who ends up winning the head-to-head matchups between Buffalo and New England. But let me ask you guys, right now, in a big game, who would you rather have as your quarterback? Josh Allen or Cam Newton? For me, the answer is not even close. It's Cam Newton. And New England, they have Denver at home this week. Cam Newton should be healthy, ready to go. I understand New England's weapons aren't the greatest, but I do expect with Cam back, New England's offense under Bill Belichick to just keep on clicking. But Tennessee, though, a good question for you guys. What is Tennessee one of the 5 or 6 best teams in the NFL? Because for me, I think the answer would be yes. When you look at the hierarchy of the AFC, I think you have to put Kansas City, even though they just lost to the Raiders, at the top. They are the defending Super Bowl champions with the best quarterback in the league. You have to put Baltimore at the top. They have one loss to a very good Kansas City Chief team. Lamar Jackson's phenomenal. He's having another good season. They're running the ball. Their defense is good. Baltimore is at the top. I think you could then put the AFC East winner. If you want to think it's Buffalo, personally, I don't think it is, but I understand why you would think Buffalo is. I do feel comfortable saying Buffalo is a 10 or 11 win team and is going to make the playoffs. You could put Pittsburgh in the category, but right now, I think when you compare Tennessee to Indianapolis and Houston, the 2 other contenders in the AFC South, and I don't really think we should consider the Houston Texans a contender because They won one game against the Jacksonville Jaguars. I understand Deshaun Watson is really good, but he hasn't had as good of a season as a lot of other people have expected him to. And Indianapolis, they're another team that is having quarterback issues right now. I don't know how you could watch Phil Rivers play the game of football and feel comfortable saying, okay, that's the guy I want to be my starting quarterback. No, that just cannot be the case at all. So when you consider the fact, okay, who do you think is the fourth best team in the AFC? I do think the Tennessee Titans are a realistic option when you consider how consistent Ryan Tannehill has really been since he's been the starter. And I do think there are a couple guys that deserve a lot of credit for this. Number one, Mike Vrabel. He's only been the head coach of this Tennessee Titan team for 3 years. If you remember, they made the playoffs in 2017 when Marcus Mariota was their starting quarterback and let their head coach go, Mike Mularkey. And, it's very rare in the NFL you see a head coach get fired after his team makes the playoffs, but that's ultimately what ended up happening with that. Tennessee brings in Mike Vrabel, and the first couple of years he's been in Nashville, the Titans have really improved. He's done a really good job kind of reviving Ryan Tannehill, which clearly no other coach while he was in Miami was able to do. And Arthur Smith. This is a guy that I think next year should be on the radar to get an NFL head coaching job, because if you improve a career like you have with Ryan Tannehill, a guy that in Miami, let's face it, he was going nowhere. No one could have ever expected Ryan Tannehill to turn his career around, especially in Tennessee of all places. And I think Arthur Smith, as the Titans offensive coordinator, does deserve a lot of credit for that. And they've done a really nice job surrounding him with a good offensive line led behind Taylor Lewan and Ben Jones at center. They also have some good underrated wide receivers. I really like this kid Khalif Raymond. Corey Davis is in the mix. He didn't play on Tuesday night. Neither did Adam Humphries, and it's not like either of those guys are world beaters. But I do think having both of those guys on your side of the ball on offense will be able to get the offense going. And it's not like those guys aren't professional players that could really help you out. So I just wanted to say shout out to the Tennessee Titans. I do see what you guys are doing. Tennessee does look like a playoff team to me, and just an incredible job by Mike Vrabel, Arthur Smith, Ryan Tannehill and company, the way they just handled a very good Buffalo Bills team.